I found a letter from her shortly after she passed away where she asked if, she literally said, "I know now this is where my story is going to end, so I hope you'll pick it up and finish it with yours." And she left me the unfinished manuscript and that request to finish it for her. And I think she meant it because she knew it was something that I'd need when she passed away.
Hi friends, this is Read and Write with Natasha podcast. My name is Natasha Tynes and I'm an author and a journalist. In this channel, I talk about the writing life, review books, and interview authors. Hope you enjoy the journey. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. Today, I'm very happy to have with me Emily Johnson, who wrote the book Bird of Paradise, and she actually co-wrote the book. She co-wrote the book with her mom, Marilyn Hughes. So this is a very interesting story. Before I get into introducing Emily and all of that, I just want to say something to everyone who's listening or who's watching. Is that I get a lot of requests for people to come on this podcast. I don't know, for some reason, podcasts are very popular these days. And I was really attracted to Emily's story because she wrote this book with her mom. She wrote the book for her mom after she passed away. So I want to hear all about it, and I want to ask her about it. So Emily, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. First, I'm really sorry about your mom, and hope that you're feeling now better after she passed away. And just to introduce you to everyone here, Emily was born in Aspen, Colorado, and she attended UNC Chapel Hill and graduated with a degree in journalism, but creative writing has always been her passion. She resides in Raleigh, North Carolina with her husband and son. Meanwhile, her mom, Marilyn, spent her formative years in the San Francisco Bay Area. In 1996, she was diagnosed with breast and advanced ovarian cancer. She began writing The Bird of Paradise as a life gift for her daughter. She passed away in 2012, leaving the novel unfinished for Emily to complete. So, Emily, this book, Bird of Paradise, can you tell us a bit about the book, and then we get into the writing process?
Sure. It is a work of fiction, but I will say that there's bits and pieces of my mom and my family throughout the story, which makes it, at least for me, very interesting and a bit embarrassing for some of the story that's been in there. But it is the story of a 17-year-old girl, Ariana Haywood, as she journeys through life over the course of 10 years. Trying to figure out who she is in the world, facing everything that high school has to give you, and then realizing there is so much more beyond that time. And she thinks she has her entire life set out for her, but as it often goes, we can't really control what happens in life. And she ends up on a whole different trajectory that brings her to a place that of romance, but I don't want to give any more away than that. But it is, it is a coming of age at the beginning. And just like the girl in the book, it really kind of transforms over the course of 572 pages. So it becomes a family saga and eventually ends up with a full romance.
Wow. So this book, the whole idea, was it your mom's idea, the whole plot of the novel?
It was, she, like you said, began writing it back in 1996 when she was diagnosed with cancer. And she used to spend hours writing it. She created all but one character. I knew the name. I knew who that character was supposed to be within the story. But that's the one character that I created from the ground up. She didn't leave much notes of where she wanted to take the story. I think she almost did that on purpose. So, when I took it up after she passed away, it was amazing to finish her work. We didn't consult on it at all together. So there was definitely that black and white line. But then it was going back and putting in bits and pieces into what she had written to make sure where I took the story made sense.
So she wrote the main character, Ari?
She did. Yep. That was 100% her creation. I think a lot of that main character is based upon my mom. My mom was 17 in 1967 in San Francisco when Ari, we first introduced to her. So I think there's bits and pieces there of experiences my mom had and people in my mom's life that got put in there. There's a lot of San Francisco in the first part of the book, and it goes into great detail about places and events that were in San Francisco. And a lot of that is family traditions based upon us and my family. So it's
what
really
about
nice.
the mysterious place, the island? Is that based on real life?
That is you have asked a question that so many people have asked me. This island, it's such a major feature in the book. It almost takes on its own character in a sense. And I have no earthly idea where she based that on. I don't believe that it's a place that is in existence. I think it's probably a combination of all her favorite tropical places in the world, and then just her almost Eden, I think. I mean, I like to think of her being there now that she's no longer with us.
That's nice. So your mom started, and you say in the bio it was a gift to her daughter. Are you the daughter that she was gifting to? Or
I am, yes. Okay. I'm an only child.
You're an only child.
Yeah. And I think she really left it, she never knew from day to day how long she'd be with us. When she first got diagnosed with the ovarian cancer, she wasn't given much time to live. It was so advanced, and statistically, you just don't survive that for more than a year or so. So I think part of this was putting down all those little life lessons that you'd want to teach your children, because she didn't know if she'd be there to do it. And that's kind of where, in my mind, she had left the life gift, because it was her way of continuing a conversation with me long after she thought she may not be here.
So she started it when she was diagnosed, or did she start it before she was diagnosed?
She started it when she was diagnosed. I'm not 100% sure how soon, but I would say within a matter of months.
So. Okay. And after the diagnosis, she lived for how long?
Unbelievably, she lived for 15 years.
After the diagnosis?
After the diagnosis, yeah. And, the breast cancer, she took care of relatively easily. And I say it was relative because it was still a big deal. The ovarian cancer was the one that really became an issue. And I think she was diagnosed, she had 8 recurrences, multiple surgeries, lots of chemotherapy, but she just wouldn't give up. She told the doctors, I don't care what you have to do. I want to be here to watch my daughter walk down the aisle. And sure enough, she was there, and 2 of her doctors were there as well as wedding guests, and she passed away a year and a half later. So she made it, but she just, she never had a bad attitude about it. Every once in a while, she let herself, be the why me, this isn't fair, and she always said, that's okay. You can't be, Peggy Perky 24 hours a day. But she never had a negative attitude on it. She looked at it as, here's a really bad situation, but what is the positive that can come out of it? And it brought our family very close together. I mean, my parents and I, I consider them to be my best friends, and we were a very close-knit family, more so than I think a lot of people are. And that is actually reflected in the family in Bird of Paradise quite a bit. It mirrors a lot of my family dynamic when I was growing up.
So she started the book, and for 15 years she kept working on it. I guess because of the chemo and the illness, it was really hard for her to finish it. Correct?
Yeah, it just came, she'd have to put it down for quite a bit of time, and then she'd come back to it. And she was always someone that she was very detailed, loved the research aspect of it to ensure that every place that she took the characters was accurate for that time period in that area. So I think a lot of that contributed to how long it took. And then part of me believes that she never intended to finish it. I found a letter. I found a letter from her shortly after she passed away, where she asked if, she literally said, I know now this is where my story is going to end. So I hope you'll pick it up and finish it with yours. And she left me the unfinished manuscript and that request to finish it for her. And I think she meant it because she knew it was something that I'd need when she passed away. I think she knew toward the end, she was very intuitive about her health. I think she knew toward the end that we were coming up on the end. And so that's why I think she stopped writing about a year before she passed away. And I think she did it on purpose because she knew I would need that connection and that I would need that ability to work through my emotions and grief in this way. It was like journaling in a sense, but there was purpose behind it. And I don't know, looking back on it, I'm not sure how I would have made it through without having this to focus on.
Oh wow! Did you know that she was writing it, or was it a
I
secret?
did.
Okay.
I did. I knew she was writing it, but she would never let me read it. And then she would never tell me what it was about. And every time I kind of inquired about it, she just said, "You're going to know eventually." And so I don't know if that was her little hint years and years prior to me being the one to finish it. But she was very secretive about it. And I think she knew if anything happened to her, I was going to go searching for it fairly quickly. So she left it with the letter on top of her computer, knowing that I would find it.
Oh,
And
wow.
I already knew what her password was. And so, I think she always intended that.
So she lived in a different house. So you went to get her stuff after she passed away, and you found the letter on her computer?
Yeah, I mean, my parents had lived in Pinehurst, and I was already back in Raleigh at that point. So it's only about an hour and a half away. So I was down there throughout the last few weeks of her illness and what was going on. It actually wasn't cancer that took her. It was just the years and years of chemotherapy. Her body couldn't handle that anymore. It had gotten to be too much. And so I have already been down there. I was helping my dad go through things. You're kind of in that numb period where you haven't really figured out exactly what's happening, but all the casseroles have stopped coming and the people have all gone home and family has all gone home and life goes on for them. So we were kind of in that in-between period where you haven't quite figured out what you're going to do, where you're going to be. And we were just cleaning stuff out together.
Did you know that she wanted you to finish it, or was it a complete surprise?
It was a complete surprise. I think in my mind, all I wanted to do was find it to read what she'd written. I never in a million years thought that she would leave it to me to finish, but looking back on it, it makes perfect sense.
Huh. This sounds like a movie. Have you ever thought of pitching this as a movie? This would.
I would love it. That would be so cool. I wouldn't even know where to begin, but that would be just absolutely amazing.
And why would you think she wrote it as a fiction, not as a memoir? And
she loved creative writing. She loved to be descriptive and really get into a story. So, and I think knowing her, she would have thought that she wasn't famous enough for a memoir. She was in my mind, but I think she always had that little bit of I'm not that famous. I'm not, a memoir was a little bit too, I don't even know how to describe it, but it wasn't her. It wasn't her personality. Something like this with just, some of it was a way to get away from what she was feeling. So she needed to create that fictional world and the fictional characters to immerse herself in. A memoir probably would have been too much for her to handle, focusing on what was going on.
So how many pages did she write?
I'm not going to tell. In the end, I will say that it's probably about a 50-50 collaboration between what I wrote 100% and then I kind of came up with the overall theme of the book.
Okay.
And in order to complete that and the story arc of the characters, I had to go back into what was already written and add in conversations and a few events. I also loved how she added in little stories of me and my family and things that had happened to her into the lives of the characters. And so I ended up going back and adding a few of those myself. Just funny memories of things. One of them, the little boy in the story, James, runs out the door and heads to the corner because he was told that Christmas was right around the corner. And that's actually a story of something my dad did as a child. So, there's little things like that just family and some friends really got a chance to laugh at that so many people wouldn't know, but made perfect sense into the story.
Huh. So, how much time did it take you to finish it?
It took me 8 years
Oh,
from the
wow.
moment I picked it up. And a lot of that was, it took me a while just to read through it. It was a very, very long manuscript. So it took a while to read through it. It took a while for me just to emotionally process the whole thing. And then, I knew instantly that I was gonna finish it for her. I knew exactly where to take the story, where I thought she would have done it had she completed it. And I actually wrote the end before I wrote anything else, and then just backtracked my way through it. But then I changed careers. I had a baby. That kind of put everything on hold for a
Yeah.
long time. So there was a good portion of, a year that I would put it down and then come back to it. But when my son went to preschool is when I really powered through it. And before I knew it, it was done. But part of me didn't want to finish it either. So I think there was a little bit of hesitation on that, because the second I wrote the end, I knew, that was a whole connection to my mom that was going to be done. And I
Okay.
was going to have to figure out how to move on from there.
Okay. And how did writing the book help you heal from, the loss of your mom?
I think some of it gave me something to focus on, which is really important. Rather than focusing on the fact that the person's not there anymore, it gave me something positive to focus on. I also can hear a lot of her voice throughout the book. So it was almost like I got to continue a conversation with my mom 8 years after she was gone. And by that time, I'd had the chance to kind of process my grief and get to that point where I looked back on all the time I had with her and not on the time that I've lost with her. And that was an important place for me personally to get to. I dealt with a lot of grief and guilt after she passed away, and that was, the hardest part for me. Everyone grieves differently, and there's no right way to do it. There's no timetable to do it in. And so, this book really helped me get through that, because I'm not someone to share personal stories with. I'm not the kind of person that would be able to publicly talk about my grief back then, even though I'm doing it now. So this was my private way of talking to my mom as she worked me through it. And if you read the book, I think that becomes more apparent as the book goes on.
Hmm. And did your mom want it to be published, or did she just want it to be finished and kept as like a family kind of memoir? Or
I think she always had a dream to be a published author. I remember her, she went on a cruise to Alaska, and one of the little classes that she took there was publishing books,
Hmm.
which was randomly offered by Royal Caribbean at the time. So I think she did have a dream of publishing it. I don't know if she had the dream of her being the one to publish it because of what she did and how I think she left it to me. I never intended to publish it. That wasn't my goal when writing it. My goal was just to finish it and share it with my family,
Hmm.
particularly my dad and my grandmother. My mom's mom is still alive. She's over 100 years old now.
Oh, well.
And I knew, that she would be really interested in it. And then, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Somebody knew someone in the publishing industry, convinced me to send in the manuscript. And before I knew it, they were offering to publish it. So I just kind of refer to myself as the unintended author.
Oh, wow. So I want to go back to the story. So this was published by, let me see, what is it called?
Right Way Publishing.
Right way. Yeah, I need my glasses. Sorry. So this is published by Right Way. So you had like a mutual friend who worked there and who asked, and she or he found out about the book and asked you to send the manuscript.
No, it was actually a client of mine, because I do freelance marketing and advertising and grant writing. And so a client of mine, I don't even know how the conversation started with my client about the fact that I had written this, but she said, I know somebody in the publishing industry. If you want, I'll, connect you guys via email and you can take it from there. And my contact at Right Way Publishing loved the story behind the story and asked for me to send it. And so I sent the first few chapters. They asked for the whole manuscript, and it's a hybrid publisher, and there's, small press publisher, but which is such an amazing thing these days, because I think there's so many stories out there that need to be told that never get told because getting into the top 5 publishers is virtually impossible if you don't
Yeah.
have the money or resources to do it. And I think that's a real shame, which is why I love the fact that there's hybrid publishers out there willing to take a chance on somebody.
Can you explain to anyone who's watching or listening, what is a hybrid publisher?
A hybrid publisher, as far as I know anyways, kind of has the resources and the overview process of the traditional publisher, but you don't need to necessarily have a royalty contract or an agent to get in the door. I did pay for part of the publishing cost because I did go above and beyond on what their actual other services were. And the fact that it was so big, that just the editing process of it took a long time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do some customization of it and things like that. But they helped me out financially so much to be able to get this done. I couldn't have done it on my own. But the real big difference with the hybrid publishers is they won't publish everything. They want a good review process. They want to make sure that what they're publishing is the quality work because they put their name on it as well.
Mm-hmm. So it's I know what a hybrid publishing is, but I'm just trying to explain it to anyone who doesn't know what it is. So it's like somewhere in the middle between self-publishing and traditional publishing.
Yes.
It's kind of like the middle ground. And so if you were not approached by that person, you would not have even thought about going through the whole process of finding an agent or self-publishing.
No, I didn't even know self-publishing was an option. I didn't know you could publish outside of the big publishing companies. I had always, been writing journalistic, pieces and public relations and marketing because that's what I did for a living. So you kind of don't even think about the other part of publishing when you're doing that. And so I didn't even know. I was completely surprised that it was even an option. So no, had I not been approached, this wouldn't have become a reality.
So maybe we can call you the accidental author.
I am a completely accidental author, and I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be more grateful for Right Way Publishing for what they did and how they helped me out doing this.
So, okay, let me see. So what are you doing now? Are you going to continue writing books, or what are your plans, the current and the future?
I would like to write more. I do have an idea actually for another story that would connect to Bird of Paradise, and it would actually be the story of the parents in it, because I think a lot of my parents' relationship is woven in there. So I think it'd be a lot of fun for me to go back and do it. I've tried. I still have a blank page that's saved under the name sequel. So I just haven't, between being a mom and virtual kindergarten last year and trying to get back into first grade with my son this year, and then the work that I do for clients, I just haven't had a chance to sit down and clear my mind enough to be able to write. Okay. And I don't want to force myself to write if I don't feel it, if I don't believe in it, if I don't feel that passion and just yearning for time at my computer, I'm not ready to do it.
Interesting. So you're not the type of author who's like, oh, I'm going to write every day, rain or shine, like Stephen King, for example.
No, I mean, there was times where I was writing this that I hate to admit it, but I couldn't wait for preschool to come around because, preschool wasn't 5 days a week. So, I'd be really excited when I dropped my son off at preschool just to get a few hours to sit there at a coffee shop mostly and write. And I feel very guilty about that as a mom, which is a whole different subject. But
you feel guilty about taking a few hours off during the day? You would rather be cleaning or cooking? Or...
No, I mean, I felt guilty for not cleaning or cooking. I can tell you that.
Yeah, who feels guilty about that?
For having that bit of time where I was excited that my son was at school and I had some mom time. And I think a lot of moms go through that. And I think that's something that probably contributes to a lot of parents, trying anything, whether it's writing or doing anything for yourself. That's always a hard balance.
Yeah.
Particularly for a first-time parent, and he's my only one. So we're still navigating through that. He's 7, and I don't think I'll ever stop navigating that.
Oh, well.
And my mom passed away before he was born. So I didn't really
Oh.
have my mom to be able to kind of go to as a resource like a lot of people, hope and should have.
Yeah, I have 3 kids, and the struggle is real. I don't feel guilty when I send them to school. That's a different.
Well, I don't anymore.
After the third one, I was like, go. But so yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, mom guilt is real. I probably used to feel it earlier on in my parenting journey, but it's still there, of course. I mean, uh, and sometimes I feel guilty if I'm happy, and I think you recognize that in order to have a happy family, you have to have a happy mother. So it's a really tricky balance. But okay, so the book Bird of Paradise, how is it doing now? What was the reaction to it?
It's been unbelievable. I kind of set out, I was like, well, okay, if I'm going to publish this, was the first surprise. My only goal was to sell one copy to someone that wasn't related to me. Because I knew everyone in my family was going to buy one, but that's typical. And so
you have a nice family.
I just wanted one person who I didn't know who it was to buy it, and it has just sold so well. And it's so hard when you don't have the hundreds and thousands of dollars to put behind marketing, like the big publishing companies do, to try and get a foot in the door at all. So, it's putting my marketing background into it, which is really funny how hard it is to market yourself versus somebody else. I could market the heck out of anybody else, but my own work and my own self is challenging to me. But, I don't 100% know how many copies it sold, because I've told my publisher I don't want to know. It's not, really that important to me. I do know it's been well into, I believe, over 1,000 at this point, well over 1,000 between, Kindle Unlimited and Kindle downloads and the paperback itself. And the response has been incredible. I have had people, compare me to Barbara Freethy, which just blew my mind.
To who? To who?
Barbara Freethy.
Who's that? Sorry,
she's a very, very famous author who writes a lot of family saga kind of romance novels.
I should know her, I guess.
I was just blown away when someone wrote that in a review. I just the response to the whole thing is just made me so proud, and I know my mom would be so happy to see it. And the thing that really surprised me was the people that reached out who had similar stories to mine, where they lost a parent or a loved one to cancer, or they had just found out that the parent had been diagnosed with cancer, and they reached out to me saying their story was so good to hear, that there's life on the other side, and that you can in fact get through it. But I'm 10 years past it now. There's a very, very different outlook I have now than I did. I mean, obviously, I still wish my mom was here. I never wouldn't wish that, but I found that place where I can live with it. That's not something you come to right away. So just the opportunity to tell my mom's story, I feel like what she went through, both personally and through this book, it's her legacy.
So you think she's looking down from heaven, and she's happy? She's
I think so. I think she's on her island smiling on the beach.
Yeah, she is on the island. And so did you get any negative feedback?
I haven't gotten any negative feedback whatsoever. So that has been so nice. And a lot of the reviews are from people that I have no idea who they are. I expected, or at least I hope, for positive feedback from my family.
Well, we hope.
We hope. And so there's that, and that means a ton, but it means a ton more on a personal level than anything else. I never, a review or a response from a family member is still intensely, personal, and you really, really want it. But it's from the people that you don't know, who have no earthly clue what the story is, or what they're getting themselves into when they buy the book. That's just, it's really self-affirming, I guess, that it really just shows that, what my mom and I did here was was something special.
Huh. It is very special. And so that's a picture of your mom. It's a very nice picture of, and I like how you have both of them, your mom and your picture here. And it's a really very, very unique, the story behind the story, I think. So I want to ask you a bit about marketing, since you're the marketing guru, if you want to use that word. So how have you been marketing your book? And just because one of kind of the objectives or the missions of this podcast is to help authors and aspiring authors to know kind of the tricks of the trade. So how did you market this, and what worked and what did not work for you?
When I knew that it was going to be published, so it was in the final editing process, I put together a list of everyone I knew, from friends, family, to my dentist, parents that my son knew, everybody. And I let everyone know that I was getting ready to publish a book. And that's very hard to do, because you kind of feel, at least for me, I'm one of those people that prefers to be more in the background, which is why I do marketing for others and not myself.
Okay.
And so it's very hard to talk about myself, but I knew it was really important to get that word out there, hit social media. I mean, Instagram, even Twitter, no matter how much you hate it, is a great way to start building a following. Facebook, and really you got to start from the ground up with people you know, and then you start spidering out from there. I did a lot of, once it was published, I did a lot of the coming soon kind of things online with Books Butterfly was a really good one. Book Gorilla, BookBub, you can search and Google of places to market, books and things like that.
What are these places again?
These are they're online groups of readers. Basically, they send out newsletters every day announcing new books or books that are on discount based upon the reader. When they sign up for it, you put in your preferences. Do you like thrillers? Do you like romance? And so they custom make these newsletters basically to go out to readers, and then there's links to where the books can be bought. And that helped a lot, because you have to figure out how to spread the word beyond your network. I know a lot of the big publishing companies, one of the first things they ask someone is, how big is your social media following? Yeah. And that is so unfortunate, because you could have an amazing story that needs to be told and needs to be shared with the world, but if you only have 400 people on your social media versus tens of thousands, how are you going to do it? It's the chicken egg kind of story, what's going to come first. So I've really relied 100% on social media and word of mouth. And then it's just hitting it every single day, trying to find where my likely reader is going to be. So I went and searched, for the type of reader that would, Rosamund Pilcher was a big one for my mom. She loved Rosamund Pilcher and Maeve Binchy. And so I think a lot of this book is in that style. So I started looking to see where those types of books were going to be advertised and who those types of books were being marketed to, because this book was not written with a specific audience in mind, which is what a lot of people tell you to do. But if you're not intending to publish it, then you're not doing that. So that kind of put me almost on a disadvantage a little bit, although I think you can also tell authors that write books specifically for a particular audience. And sometimes it's so obvious the book doesn't make sense anymore. So, I think there's a fine balance between that. But it's really just kind of grown. And then it's podcasts. I got on one podcast simply by sending an email to someone that did a podcast through a Goodreads contact, believe it or not. I joined a group there for something about discussing new releases or Oprah's book club or something, which isn't really Oprah's book club, but okay. I wish it was Oprah's book club.
Okay.
That's my next step. But, and she mentioned that she had a podcast, and I asked if I could be on it. And then it just snowballed from there, where I started receiving requests to be on podcasts. I started finding podcasts to request to be on. And that's really brought in a number of sales. And now I'm just hoping to get some of that organic traffic. I'm about ready to speak at a book club meeting at the end of the month. And then several others have come in as well. So it's really, you got to get on the ground and do it. A lot of it for an unknown author is grassroots, just like they say. It's almost like politics for someone that's not known. You got to get out there and tell people about it.
Yeah, I have a book club too, so maybe we'll invite you. That's
I would love
yeah. Actually,
that.
we invited a number of authors, and it's I think it's a great way to market a book. I published a novel a few years ago, and I really enjoyed speaking at book clubs. So, what is the number one that worked for you? The number one thing, marketing thing that worked for you? You would like if you were on an island, not on your mom's island, and you're given all these tools in a box, like what would one tool you would bring to you to the marketing island?
I think, it's really looking at these online businesses that do newsletters for book lovers. BookBub is a very popular one, Book Gorilla, Book Butterfly, like I said, because that can help get the book out to people that you can't reach yourself. And it's a great place to start, particularly if you're doing a new release or you're going to do a promotion of some kind. And that will get eyes for people you don't know. And then it's just, there's not really anyone I meet these days where I don't work into the conversation that I have a published book.
Yeah.
Make sure it makes sense when you do it. But I would think for a new author, those types of companies online is the place to go. And yeah.
Do you think social media is overrated when it comes to marketing? Like from my experience, I mean, I have a lot of followers for some reason. I have like maybe over 10,000 followers on Twitter alone. And my experience is that, people would like your tweet, they retweet, but the people who actually willing to invest in you or buy your book do not usually come from social media.
I think it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think it depends on the platform you're using. I mean, for me, Facebook is more of a personal thing. So I have a big restriction on who's going to see it because I use it to show pictures of my son to my family in California and things. And I don't want the world seeing that. So that was really to get the word out to my friends and contacts, that I've had ever since, some childhood friends all the way up through people I know now, but I know who they are.
Okay.
Instagram I have found to be great because this book is so descriptive and this book has so much imagery in it. I've been able to go back and one place in San Francisco that my mom takes the characters to this place called Julius's Castle, which is a restaurant up on the hill that overlooks the city. It's a very famous restaurant. And so I was able to kind of post pictures like that and post pictures of different places around the world that this takes you. And so Instagram's really good for things like that. Obviously, I didn't want to get too detailed to places that were more of the descriptive made up areas because I don't want somebody being influenced about how this is going to play out in their mind. Mm-hmm. That's one of the joys of being a reader is to give, just enough description to where you create your own world as you're reading it. Yeah. And but that was great for Instagram. And when I'm doing a promotion of something, whether I put it on sale or, even if I'm doing giveaways, Instagram's been really helpful with the ads that you can purchase. You can set your budget. So you're not going to all of a sudden find yourself, hundreds of dollars in the hole at the end of the month and wonder where it went. Yeah. You can track, I did it to track clicks and things like that. And I corresponded the sales on Amazon with the running of that Instagram ad. And there was a direct correlation between the two. So it's not 100%, but I think Instagram is great. It's a little more professional in a sense. And Twitter, you can get the word out about Twitter. I would never, at least personally for me, consider buying Twitter advertising. I don't think you're going to get a good return on your investment for that. But you have to be careful with Twitter too, because it tends to be a little bit more the wild, wild west than anything else. And you can't control the conversation as well. And that's key to marketing is to, you want people to organically talk about what your product or your book, but you also want to be able to control where it's going. And that's key in any type of marketing is you want to be in charge of the messaging. So Twitter's a little harder. I have moved back from Twitter for a number of reasons. I still have my account. I still check in on it. If I have a podcast that I've been on, I still post the links to it, but I'm not doing as much organic marketing on Twitter as I used to do. It's just not worth it. It can also, I hate to say it, for a number of reasons, it can be very emotionally draining on Twitter as well. There's some subjects that I just don't need to be bombarded with every single day. So, but Instagram, I think, is really helpful. I think LinkedIn is also helpful, particularly, if you're writing a book that's either nonfiction, in more of an educational book type thing. LinkedIn is very helpful because you can make those business contacts. I happen to do some marketing on LinkedIn because it was a way for me to reach some professional contacts who also I knew semi on a personal basis, that I couldn't reach via social media otherwise. But that you have to think about where you're most likely to find your audience. My audience is not going to be a lot of men. So going to, websites where, oh God, this sounds like it's going way down the wrong.
No, it's fine. I mean, I think the stats show that men do not read a lot of fiction. They tend to gravitate towards nonfiction, and it's especially romance fiction. It's the majority. It's probably 90% are women readers and women writers and women publishers. So it's pretty female dominated.
Well, and that's another great option is writing blogs. I have my own website, my own author website that I built. Part of it's because I do build websites for off of actually not doing it personally. And so I was able to build a website. I do have a blog that I'm now in the process of starting to populate. I've just been so busy, I hadn't had a chance to do it. But then you can go and just search on Google for blogs that talk about books that are in your genre or similar, and ask if you can do a guest blog. I've written several guest blogs for other authors' blogs. And, as long as you're kind of not in direct competition, I suppose, with them, a lot of times they'll let you write a blog, and that gives you access to a whole different set of people that you wouldn't have been able to access otherwise. So it takes a lot of creativity.
Newsletter. Do you have a newsletter?
I do not have a newsletter. My publisher has been after me to do that.
Newsletters I highly recommend.
I have to admit, with everything that I'm involved with right now, both personally and professionally, a newsletter is a ways off. I am writing the blogs. I just published several blogs that, describe some of the places and faces that are in this book, and some personal family stories behind why that was written into the book, to kind of give an idea of, why this is kind of special, and mostly to embarrass myself, which I'm not beyond people knowing that when I was a kid, I called it eggnog, and I accidentally drank the adult eggnog one Christmas instead of the kid eggnog. And that was not a pleasant experience for me. And I also know that my mom did not like my high school boyfriend, because that character is definitely based on that person. And there was a few of them, so I'm not giving it away completely who that was. But, being able to help people picture kind of these areas where if they didn't grow up in San Francisco, they wouldn't necessarily know what they are. But it's great to be able to create an image, because this book is so descriptive. It does create a lot of imagery. And so that's what I'm using some of the blogs for right now. And it's been a lot of fun to go do that. There's
few people know how hard it is to market your book. It's like actually more work than writing the book. Like,
I was just going to say that. Writing this book was easy compared to what it takes to try and market it.
Selling the book is hard.
It takes time. I mean, there's ups and downs. You'll go on Amazon and all of a sudden see your rating just absolutely incredible, which you have to take with a grain of salt too. And I wish more people understood how the ratings on Amazon work. Because just because it's rated in the 5,000s doesn't mean it's not selling. It's just all relative to what else is going on in the genre. And the type of genre that Amazon determines your book is best fit for, which may not actually be what it's best fit for, but that's a whole other subject. We love Amazon selling anyways. It's great. But
I will have to pick your brain after this about some marketing.
It's just really, knowing that this is not a short-term thing. This is a long-term commitment. You can't just market it and then leave it. It's not a set it and forget it. You can come and go with it. You're going to see ups and downs. I mean, there was a whole period. There was 1 month where I didn't sell anything except for a Kindle Unlimited, which you barely don't get paid for. And so you have to determine, if you're a new author and nobody knows you, it's not exactly something that you go into for the money. You go into it because you're passionate about what you do, and you hope that it takes off. You hope people like your story, and you hope it grows from there. So, my publisher warned me that this is going to be a multi-year process before things really take off.
Yeah.
I think the two of us are surprised by the response it got after a year of work. And if it keeps going on the trajectory that it is, I couldn't be happier. But if nothing else ever happens to it, I am still intensely proud and happy of what happened.
So what, I think I want to know more about, just want to put the marketing aside, I want to know about the voice in the novel. So how did you manage to keep the same voice that your mom wrote?
That was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I had to do was I had to read over what she wrote several times to really get, the first time I read over it was just more, I was in awe of finally getting a chance to read it. And I was shocked and surprised at things that happened. And I laughed and I cried and everything. And then I started going over it from a more technical standpoint and actually took notes. I knew that Ari and the character of Papa and Mama and James and anybody that was in it, I had to take notes about who they were and what their personality was like. It was very important for me not to change that, because these were my mom's characters that she created, and I did not want to steal that from her. And so, then it was really, I wrote it. Like I said, I wrote the end before I wrote the beginning, and then I just backtracked my way. I wrote the whole thing, read it. I decided that some of it was good, some of it was horrific, and some of it didn't fit at all. So then it was just a matter of going over and over and over again to make sure that the story arc could be completed from beginning to end, and that it wasn't like there was two different people playing the same character, and making sure it all made sense. And it almost happened organically, just going through it over and over and over again. My mom and I think, it sounds weird, but I think my mom and I always had a special, connection to one another. So through me, I think her voice came through, because I knew how she would have continued to write it, and her way of writing. The writing style for me was the hardest, in all honesty, because being in journalism and marketing, you don't really want to be descriptive. You want to get the facts out there and as quickly as possible. And more often than not, you have 1,000, word limit. This book, she was so descriptive and creating this entire movie in your mind. And I had to go back and make sure that what I wrote 100% matched that level. And so it was kind of like putting, layers of oil paint on a canvas. You just got to start real small and then just go over it and over it again. I had what I thought would be close to a final version of it and gave it to my dad to read for the first time. And he made a few comments of, this is kind of embarrassing that my daughter wrote this part of it. I don't want her to know that she knows what this is, even though I was a mother at that point.
Yeah.
And the comment he made on a particular part of it that changed kind of the way I wrote a whole where the journey went, made the book in my mind that much better, because had I gone down that way, it wouldn't have matched my mom, and I in the end probably would have been disappointed in myself. So there was, he really helped me out on something like that. And there was things that I had to go back and change about what she wrote. There was small little bits I had to cut that didn't progress the story forward. They were great descriptively, but this was getting to be very long. I needed to cut it back a little bit, but not anything that would have directly affected the story itself. And then, in some things I had to change a couple events here and there to make sense to go into, what I consider to be, book number 2, which isn't book number 2, but it's, it's my phase of the book. Just because sometimes there was a few characters, not main characters, but a couple characters in there that I could not figure out for the life of me how to continue them on. So I had to kind of adjust things here and there. But my mom based so much of this kind of on places she'd been and experiences she'd had, that when I kind of took over the book, it's not a spoiler because it's very much referred to, and you can look at the table of contents. The book does end up in Venice at one point, and a lot of what is described during that part of the journey is very personal, because it's places that I've been and things that I've seen and experiences that I've had. And, you know, that was something that I could write personally. And so that matched my mom's voice. If I could write from personal experience, just like she wrote from personal experience, that helped meld everything together. And so I picked there's this one line in the book that the main character Ari says, and it's, have you ever experienced a moment so significant that you won't remember it, you'll live it over and over again? And there is a lot of parts in the parts that I wrote where those little moments in my life that I will never forget got written into the story.
That's really nice. So I know we're coming up to the hour, and this has been a pleasure, and I really enjoyed your story. And you know, for anyone who's listening or watching, please check out Bird of Paradise by Emily and her mom Marilyn. It's a great story, and I hope to see it in as a movie sometime. So
I've already cast my characters, so it better be made soon before they get too old to play the parts.
Thank you very much, and until we meet again.
Thank you. It was great talking to you.
Likewise.